Welcome back for our history session number 2 on lesson 3 in the earliest cities. We focus on part 2, that is, we are going to discuss about the houses, drains, and the streets and life in the city. So let's move. Yes. So before we actually start discussion about the houses, drains, and streets, I would like to mention that these particular cities which were discovered from the Indus Valley civilization, the first city that was discovered was Harappa, right? We discussed earlier. So one of the Indian archaeologists who was involved for this excavation or who was the important person for the excavation of this site of Harappa was Rai Bahadur Dayaram Sahani. So one of the important person who took care of this excavation. And for Mohenjo-daro, it was Rakhaldas Bandopadhyay, or we know him as R.D. Banerjee. So he plays an important role in the excavation of the site of Mohenjo-daro. Now let us focus on the houses. As you can see in the picture, the houses were generally 1 or 2 stories. These houses also had separate bathing areas and different rooms built around a courtyard. And some of the houses also had wells for the water supply. Many of these houses also had covered drains. So the drains were laid in straight lines and had gentle slopes for easy flow of water. And they were also covered to take care of the hygiene and cleanliness of these areas, and so the streets and the lanes were generally dry because they were covered, right? And there was an inspection hole made for regular cleaning purposes. These days also you see certain manholes covered with those iron bars, or sometimes there is a round lid wherein they also have an inspection holes for cleaning them from time to time. So the major drain pipes were directly connected to each house and formed a smaller drains, a network of that, which merged with the larger ones. So the small drains threw the water from the each and every house, and that network finally was responsible to collecting all the drainage water or the sewage water into the larger ones. So this was actually about the streets and drains. The streets were also carefully planned. So in between two houses there was a gap kept. So here you can see actually where a bullock cart is passing by this area, right? This. So these are the streets. And below that, when you can see, I would just show you what is it. So now if you go and just check here, what does this say? This says it's a drain. So this is a house, and this below the feet of those bullocks you could see certain bricks which are laid down. That is the covering of the drainage. And then those are the streets. So you can see how well the houses are constructed. This was the courtyard where the children would play, and then surrounding it we have different kinds of rooms. Yes, if most of you have seen the Vada system in the city of Pune, so it was like that, a courtyard in between, and then the rooms were constructed around it, and generally it was 1 or 2 storied, right? So similar kind or the similar fashion house construction over there. And then you could also make out that they have used the bricks for construction. You can also see there is a kind of a balcony, or we say dry balcony, wherein the people of the house could dry their clothes, complete their washing things. So even in those days you could find this kind of an area was available. So this is all about the houses, drains and streets. For your reference, I have uploaded one more link which would help you to understand about houses, drains and streets in a video form. So I would request, once you finish watching this video, Please do watch that video of the extra reference material, so which gives you an extremely clear idea about the way the houses were constructed, the way the drains were taken care of, and the way the streets were passing in between the houses. So I hope this point is clear with you. Let's move further. Yes. Now the next part that we are going to deal is about the life in the city. Now, generally, the powerful people they resided in the city areas, and so generally they were the powerful people or they controlled the city. So now, who were they? They were the rulers, and what was the duty of these rulers? These rulers would plan for the construction of new buildings and areas in the cities. Maybe they thought that some new kind of buildings were required, maybe for the people to stay, or maybe some other reason, maybe to construct more granaries, right? Or to construct different kinds of roads, a different kind of drainage system, or different kinds of wells. So this planning was done by the rulers. Now you could just check in your textbook in the topic life in the city, you would find that they have actually shown us a street in Mohenjo-daro which is also having a drain. And then even a well is also shown in that picture. How each and every house could have a well. Generally each house had a well in their backyards. Then there were people who were known as scribes. So these scribes knew how to read and write. So what was the duty or the job of these people? These people would help in making the seals. We know what is a seal, right? When you have some important letters, some important documents, or even your normal letters which you send, you seal it, right? That is, you glue it with a glue, or you put a sellotape, you staple it, so many things. But then when it is actually a seal, it is not supposed to be opened by any other person, and it had some imprints on it, some impressions on it. Now for this seal, an example I would just like to quote you, which you all know. You all must have seen the movie Three Idiots, right? There, when the actor of that movie, he goes to the college office to find out the paper. And you've seen the paper is put up in an envelope and it was sealed. He breaks open the seal to help his friend, and after getting a photocopy, he again keeps it and then he again puts a seal, that red color impression that is known as a seal. It may be used in wax, clay, or even on paper like stamps. Fine, so these are seals. This is just an example to relate what are seals. Do not think what wrong things that actor has done. We are not supposed to do those kind of things, right? Yes. Then the next part we have, these were the craftspersons. These people always traveled in search of raw material and made different kinds of things out of those materials. So what was these different kinds of materials that they used? So we could say most of the times they made things out of stone, shells and metals, and these metals included copper, bronze and silver. So generally copper and bronze were used to make the different tools, weapons, ornaments and vessels. See here. Gold and silver was used for making the ornaments. Then people have also found remains of a cloth which was stuck up in a lid of the silver vase. So we come to know that yes, the people used different kinds of cloth. They also found spindle rolls. It was made out of a terracotta or a fines, and they used to spin fibers out of thread and roll it around it. These days also we know when we get a thread, the thread is wrapped on some of the hard surface. So that is spindle rolls. Then there were some people who were known as specialists. So who were these specialists? These people were the people who were trained only to do some particular kind of work. These days also we have specialists in so many different fields, right? We have doctors who are specialized in some or the other things. We have artists, we have dancers, we have musicians. So these are the specialists. Okay. Then the raw materials that these craftsperson brought were generally either or human made, and they went from place to place in search of that. So generally they traveled to Rajasthan and Oman to get copper. Present day Afghanistan and Iran, they bought tin from that places. Gold from present day Karnataka, and the precious stones were brought from the present day Gujarat, Iran and Afghanistan. And then, as I mentioned, that there was a piece of cloth which was also found attached to a lid of a silver vase. It tells us that cotton was also probably grown in one of the important places of this civilization, which is Mehergarh, and which is about 7,000 years ago. So even before the Indus Valley civilization, this place had or knew the technique of growing of cotton. I guess Mehergarh we have studied in the earlier chapter as well. The square and rectangular type of houses, living and dying, how the burials were made, right? So this is the same thing about Mehergarh. So we need to remember here what were the different kinds of things these people used as raw material, what was made out of it, and from where these people got different raw materials. Who is a specialist? A person who is trained to do only one particular kind of work. I hope till here we all are clear. Yes. Now there you can also see a statue. Yes, can you see? Yes. What is that statue? That is a statue of an important man found from Mohenjo-daro. It shows that he is wearing an embroidered garment. So maybe he is a rich merchant or a ruler of that place. Then you could also see different kinds of stones over here, or the metals which were used for different purposes. Finally, we discuss about fines. What is fines? Fines is a material that is artificially produced and which was used to make beads, bangles, earrings and vessels. So this is actually a gum which was used to shape sand or powdered quartz into an object. Okay, and then these objects which were made out of fines were glazy and shiny, and usually they had the blue or sea green colors. So I hope all these things are clear to you. So this is all from my side for today. Till we meet for the next session, bye. Take care of yourself, stay healthy, stay inside.